welcome back to the channel, and we're going to move on to part 2 of the Airfix Battle of Britain Memorial Flight gift set in 1/72nd scale. In this video what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the Spitfire MK IIA build and see how that progressed compared to the first one. So this is my second aircraft that I've built since I started the hobby again this year, and I tried a few other little techniques here that are a little bit more advanced, but we'll go into that a little bit later when we go through the video. One thing I want to point out is obviously it's going to be exactly the same as the previous video, where it's going to be sort of photographic sort of slideshow type effect of the build, and there are going to be quite a lot of bits missing from it because again, I didn't intend this to be a YouTube video. It was just photographs from my own records to see how I progressed. Anyway, so let's crack on and we'll have a chat about the first part, shall we? Okay, as you can see by the image, I'd progressed quite a long way before I actually started recording any of this or taking any photographs to record it. But basically what I've done here, I started off different from the last one where I didn't prime the whole kit, and I actually created the cockpit sub-assembly and the two parts of the fuselage, took them off the sprues, then I primed those and went on to paint them. I tried a little bit more detail work. Again, I made some seat belts, but these were a lot thinner than the other one, so it looked a bit better. The instrument panel was put on and the decals were put on. As you can see, there's still the silver paint around the rubber pedals. I've done some black around like the oxygen tanks at the back. I've left silver at the back of the fuselage and used the actual internal interior colour for the rest of the cockpit. It was very simple. I'd already had experience of putting together an Airfix Spitfire in 1/72nd scale at this point, so all the parts were pretty much recognisable to me. I was comfortable with them, so this part went quite quickly. The airbrush made this so much easier, and I'm so glad that I bought that as part of the beginning this hobby. That gallery little starter kit where you get the compressor and the airbrush together really is performing really well, and I'm really pleased with it. It's making the finish a lot better. If I'd have tried to brush paint all this, it would have probably turned out nowhere near as crisp as it did now. Also with this, what I went on, which you haven't seen yet, is I did gloss coat this, and then I tried a little bit of a wash on the inside, and then matte coated it again before I closed it up. So we'll move on to the next stage and see how that went. Well, as you can see, we've jumped ahead quite a bit. It didn't really take long to get to this sort of stage, but once I'd finished the cockpit and I'd glued the fuselage parts together, I just basically did the same sort of thing for the landing gear bay. I painted that up, then we put the wings together, which went really nicely. The leading edge actually was great. There wasn't much in the way of seams there, and you can see on the wing root there, it's not too bad at all. I put the tail section on, and also I primed the spinner. So I put the propellers on and the spinner and put them on a cocktail stick so I could prime them, and I basically prime the aircraft. And as you can see, I also spent a little bit more time on this by filling the seams. There was a small seam gap all the way down front, forward to aft, and I've yet to fill the one at the wing roots, but I used a bit of Airfix plastic putty for that and a cocktail stick just to wipe off the excess, and then I sanded it down. So as you can see from this stage, I've moved a little bit further forward in techniques where I'm spending more time preparing before I move on to paint. I masked off the canopy as well, and just with a little bit of PVA glue I just popped that on to use to mask that off from the rest of the aircraft. So I mean, that's basically the stage that we're at that point. So we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, we moved on a little bit from the last one. It wasn't too much that we moved on by. What I did do was I took some stuff off the sprues, pitot tubes, undercarriage parts, and put them on cocktail sticks and stuffed them in my little spongy thing so that I could undercoat them so that we could create the make the sub-assemblies. I'm still considering that the actual undercarriage assembly, sub-assembly, I should have put together. I could have left the wheels off, but I could have put the whole of the undercarriage sub-assembly together before I primed it, which would have made it easier to glue. Again, I'm still learning, and I keep forgetting that once paint's on the certain attachment points, I've either got to scrape the paint off or I've got to use super glue to glue them together. So that's another thing I've got to think ahead of, you know, when I create the bits and pieces that I'm going to be using as sub-assemblies, or and I want to start gluing stuff onto the airframe. I'm going to have to think about, is it easier to prime it all together, or is it easier to prime each piece separately then assemble it? So this is another thing that's obviously going to come with more experience, and the more I watch YouTube videos and watch a sequence of events that some of the more, you know, the really experienced guys do, I'll probably be able to figure out a system that, you know, or a way that I sort of like can create a workflow that works for me. Anyway, at this point, so we've got everything together. I've sanded stuff down from the last one that I was preparing, and once I got that, I primed everything again, ready for actual starting to put colour on there. Right, as you can see, I've started getting colour on the underside of the Spitfire. Now, this colour actually mixed and used reference photographs to sort of get like the shade that I was looking for. I mean, it's not exactly correct, obviously, but it's pretty close to the reference photographs that I saw. Now, the point is with this, because I'm a new modeller, I really haven't got a huge collection of paints, and because I'm living on a Navy pension, obviously, and I can't afford lots of specific paints. So what I did was I got myself a Vallejo set of paints. I think it cost about $40 or something like that, but you get 18 colours in it. So it gives me all the primer colours and everything like that, and a few that are sort of aircraft colours, or, you know, like model colours and things like that, and I can mix them together. So basically throughout all these builds so far, I've been doing mixing my own colours and get them as close as possible to the ones that are in the call-outs. But I also noticed that the call-outs aren't exactly right either. So I try and mix the paints as close to reference photographs that I find as possible. And I was really pleased with this colour. I love the look of it. As you can see as well, I put some sponge into the undercarriage, the wheel wells, to stop the paintwork that I'd already done on the inside of there getting overspray in it. And to me, that looked good. The detail on the bottom of that is lovely in it. Anyway, so we just move on to the next stage now. Okay, as you can see, we're now on the upper surface of the Spitfire. I masked off the underside, and obviously around the cockpit it was still masked from when I primed it. And now the time for one of my favourite things is, well, not one of my favourite things because it's the first time I've done it, but it is a really enjoyable experience, and you find out that I'm still enjoying it even with a Lancaster. That is the camo scheme. Now, to mask this off, what I did was I followed like quite a few YouTube channels. I've seen loads of different ways of people masking off camouflage, but what I decided to do was use some like little sausage rolls of blue tack to give me the outline, and then I just used masking tape from the edge of the blue tack to the limits of each camouflage colour. Obviously, when I painted the aircraft initially, I painted it with the lighter colour, which was a sort of like the khaki colour that you can see there, and then the final colour would have been the green over the top. And again, as with the underside, mix the colours from the paints I've got available to match or be as close as possible to the reference photographs I'd have of the Spitfire Mark IIA, and I was pleased with the result. Now, the airbrush laid it down beautifully. I think, just like I said before, I was using a 50-50 mix, and I don't use thinners. I found that if I just mix it with a flow improver and not add the thinners, I'm getting a nice consistency. I tried adding thinners before because it was recommended to do like a certain amount of flow improver and a certain amount of thinners to the paint, and it's a 50-50 mix, so it'd be 50% paint. But I found that not using thinners and just using the flow improver stops a lot of problems. I'm not getting as much tip drying, I've noticed as well, if I just use flow improver rather than thinners, and I'm getting a nice smooth coat. So I'm really happy with that. So I mean, for the price of the airbrush, I'm getting really decent results, and I'm happy with it, and I really love doing this camouflage. And so what we'll do is we'll move on to the next stage. With this image here, it probably looks like we've leapt ahead quite a long way, but in the great scheme of things, it's not that far ahead. Now, all we've done really is lay down the gloss coat in preparation for decals. So I've added more decals this time than I did with the previous one. Now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with the decals, and I'm getting used to using the MKIIa and MKIIa solutions. And basically that's all we've done here. We've gloss coated it, and we've just laid the decals down. And as you can see, the MKIIa has really nicely dropped them into the panel lines, and it's looking really nice right now. I was really pleased with this, and the next stage then would have been to gloss coat over the top of the decals to seal them in, to make sure they don't get damaged by any other process that we do. Right, with this one, as you can see, we've moved on to weathering. I was really enjoying this. I mean, I think I probably went a little bit overboard with the chipping around the ring route, but you know, I don't know. I think these operational aircraft probably got beat up quite a bit. People getting in and out of the cockpit. There's people maintaining the equipment in the cockpit. Yeah, and it's more around the panel lines, around the wing route, and the anti-skid strip that's on there. And I just did that with a bit of silver paint and a brush. That's all. I mean, because that's what I've got available, so that's what I used, and it did look quite effective. As before with the photo reconnaissance Spitfire, I did the same thing with the smoke underneath the exhaust. I just used charcoal on a dry brush. I think I might have used an old makeup brush or something that I found. I just feathered that back. The exhaust itself, it was supposed to be painted silver, but I dry brushed some various different colours to make it look a little bit worn down. I think browns and things like that, you know, just to make it look a little bit sort of like used and abused. And I was really happy with how this was looking. You know, this is only my second model, and I was really pleased with how it was coming along. So what we'll do is we'll move on and have a look at the next stage, and there's not much progress from there on, but you'll see it's just beginning to finalise now towards the finish line. Right, we now move back to the underside of the aircraft for some more weathering. And at this stage, I've been watching some YouTube videos and things like that, and I decided to give oil paints a go, because I've got a cheap set of oil paints from way back, and there's loads of different colours in there, which means I can mix pretty much any colour I want. And I've got a bit of like odourless turpentine that I use, and I thought, right, I'm going to give that a go. Because the good thing about this is once you've got the gloss coat over the decals and you're working away, if you make a mistake with the oils, you can just use the turpentine just to wipe it all off, because oils will take like forever to dry. You know, it'll take a long time to dry. So you've got a lot of working time with oils. Now, it probably looks like I went really overboard with this weathering, where the oil stains and the exhaust stains and everything was coming out the bottom and stuff like that. But I have seen a couple of photographs where the underside of the Spitfire was really bad. In fact, this isn't as bad as I've seen a couple of photographs. So I really enjoyed that, and as you can see on the underside as well, on the wings, I've actually done a little bit of the smoke coming off the guns and things like that. And this is all just done with, I think I just mixed rut umber and black together to sort of create a sort of like a not completely black look. And I just used the oils to feather them out to how I wanted them. If you look on towards the top of the photograph where it looks like there's a lot of weathering by the wheel well, and it's sort of like browny rusty sort of colour. That actually was a mistake from previously, and I left it there. I mean, I probably could have covered it up before I moved on to this stage, but I actually left it there because I thought it'd look quite interesting as part of the weathering. And all that is the tiniest little gap I left on the masking tape on the underside when I went and painted the camo, and that's just overspray. That's, as I went across, I think I went down towards the leading edge of the wing, and it must have just shot under the wing and the masking tape, and it was just on that side. I had a little bit of overspray there, but it actually does look like a bit of dirt, so it's a nice bit of weathering by the looks of it, yeah. And this is all done with oils, so don't be scared of oils, because I was terrified. And what I found was, like, if you just keep dipping your brush into your terps or whatever thinner you're going to use for your oils, wipe it off on your kitchen towel, and you can lift the oil straight off. You've got tons of working time to be able to do with that. So I wouldn't be afraid to use oils. It's great. So I'm just so glad I tried that technique. Right, moving on to the next stage. All I did now was, once I'd finished with the weathering, as you can see from the top as well, yeah, I put the gun, the stains from the gun's firing on the top as well. I've done a little bit more weathering around and about with some oils and stuff like that, but as you can see, the weathering is complete, and what you need to do at this point is give it time to gas off. You need to let the turpentine that is part of the oils gas off. 24 hours is pretty much okay, maybe a bit longer, 48 hours if you want, just to get because what you don't want is anything from the oils reacting with the gloss coat that you're going to put on to seal everything in. So I waited a little while, and this is the result I got after I put the gloss coat on, and it was nice and stable, and it's gone on really nice, and I was really pleased with that. As you can see, this photograph, this is now the completed Spitfire. So I'll just tell you how I got from the last stage to this stage. Basically what I did was I'd put the gloss coat on to seal in the weathering that I'd done, and I was really pleased with that. And then I let that dry, give it a good 24 hours. I'll look over the aircraft, see if there's any more weathering what I wanted to do, a little bit of dry brushing here and there, maybe a couple of bit of stone chipping or something, or a bit of chipping, sorry. But I was pretty happy with everything as it was, yeah. And then finally what I did was, because the Spitfire has a matte finish on it, a flat finish on it, I decided to put a matte coat on it. Actually, it's come out just the satin side of flat, so, which actually I'm really pleased with. I like that, just that little sheen that it's given me. Perhaps I didn't do enough flat coats, or perhaps I didn't thin the matte varnish correctly, but either way I love the result of it. Also, as you can see, there's chipping on the spinner and the propeller, and the final little touch was I did the radio aerial. So I did the line from the aerial to the tail, and all that is a bit of cotton. I don't know whether it's going to last or not, but it's just a nice thin piece of black cotton, because that's all I've got. I can't afford easy line. It's really difficult for me to get it as well. I mean, there's a lot of other options. Funny enough, I find it hard to get hold of fishing line as well, because that was another option I was looking for, and getting a fine fishing line over here is really difficult. I haven't found any yet. So I'm just stuck with raiding the cotton from my wife's sewing box. But so I just used that, and it worked well. A bit of super glue on the tail, a bit of super glue on that aerial, and we're done. So there's your final result, and this is the second model of the two Spitfires that are in the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight gift set. Thoughts on this one? It is no more challenging than the first one. but I think I made it more challenging myself because I tried some different techniques. I mean, obviously there's a camouflage paint that I've never done before, so that was a little bit more of a challenge than just one single flat colour. But I did do more in the way of weathering and stuff like that. So, you know, I went on, did some stone chipping, I did more weathering on the exhausts, I did use some oil weathering, which I didn't use on the first one. So I've moved on a little bit with techniques that I'm using at the moment, and I found it very satisfying when this was completed, knowing that I'd been successful in getting it together. And I was happy with it. So any comments you've got about this build, any advice as well, would be brilliant, yeah, on how to move forward. So what we're going to do is the next one will be the final part of the review of this kit and the 3 builds of the aircraft in it, and it will be the most challenging one yet for me, and it's the Lancaster. So I'll see you guys in the next build, but don't forget, comment, like, subscribe. See you guys later.